Welcome. It's time to go to school on the Korg M1 Music Workstation. During the past few years, Korg has taken over the position at the top with the introduction of the M1. The M1 is a complete musical production environment which includes 100 programs, 100 combinations, 44 percussion sounds, a full-featured 8-track sequencer, and 33 studio-quality digital effects. Lance Abair has become well known to musicians across the entire United States doing clinics and MIDI seminars for Korg USA. Lance's straight-ahead, non-technical explanations have helped countless musicians to get the most out of their MIDI equipment. Now, you have Lance in your own personal MIDI studio, ready to show you the ins and outs of your all-new Korg M1 Music Workstation. It's recommended that you have your M1 hooked up and ready to go as Lance walks you through the basics of this fine musical instrument.
Hi, my name is Lance Abair, and I'd like to congratulate you on your purchase of a Korg M1 Music Workstation. There are 3 basic models of the M1 Music Workstation, the M1 keyboard, and 2 rack versions, the M1R and the M1REX. This training video is entitled The Deep Dark Secrets of the Korg M1. After having met countless M1 owners, I found that most of them are still lacking a lot of the information needed to get the most out of this exciting instrument. The typical workstation buyer gets his or her new instrument home, and through reading manuals and asking questions, may arrive at 50% of the instrument's potential. That's the reason for this show and tell video owner's manual. With this instructional video, you should be up and running with a lot more power, a lot more quickly, enabling you to have more fun and to accomplish greater results. This video is intended to give you a much more in-depth, real-world understanding of the M1 to help make your technical life easier. First, we'll go through the basics, and then go into subjects like how to set up keyboard splits and layers, how to make full use of pedals, how to tap into the powerful effects processors, how to get more memory out of the sequencer, how to use a sysx command with an external sequencer to change from an internal program to a card program, how to make the most out of the powerful and flexible M1 drum kits, and many others. From my experience, I've found that most people are not involved in sound synthesis, although the M1 has a very powerful and straightforward sound programming architecture. Because of this, I've chosen to concentrate in the direction of how to utilize the instrument with onboard and commercially available sound libraries, and spend most of the time showing you how to operate it. I want to keep this video as down-to-earth as possible instead of being technical, more in the manner of a personal training session. So I'll deal with the material in sections so you can go back and work on it one part at a time. Also, if I start to go a little too fast, you can always pause, stop, and rewind to go back over the material. You can control your own pace. I'd also recommend that you have your new instrument plugged into the wall and running while you watch this video so that you can follow me as I go through all the procedures. By the way, this tape was recorded in hi-fi audio format, so if you have a hi-fi capable VCR, you might want to hook it up into a stereo system to take full advantage of the sound. Now, let's get going. When you open the box for your new instrument, you'll find that it contains the M1, the power cord, the owner's manual, a guidebook, a black card chart that contains listings of all the various function pages in the M1, an M1 voice name list containing the names of all 100 programs and combinations, and your Korg warranty registration card. Make sure that you fill out your registration card and send it to Korg immediately. This card not only establishes your warranty, but also gives Korg the ability to contact you with information on any future updates or products. The M1 can be hooked up a variety of ways. One way could be something as basic as your home stereo, hooked up running from the 1L and 2R outputs of the M1 into the left and right auxiliary inputs of your receiver using a stereo cord like this, with 1/4-inch plugs on one end and RCA male connectors on the other end. You could just as easily use a couple of small speakers with built-in amplifiers. This type of speaker is available at very reasonable prices. Simply hook the left output of the keyboard to the speaker on the left and the right output to the speaker on the right. You could also hook it up to a mixer, giving you more input channels, allowing you to use the additional 2 outputs of the M1. The mixer could then be connected to a stereo amplifier running to 2 monitor speakers. There's also a headphone jack on the back panel. Press the sequencer key on the front panel. This will access the sequencer section in your display screen. A word of warning: before playing any of these sequences, you should first adjust the volume of your playback system to a very low level. The reason for this is that the output of the M1 is very high. It's possible to accidentally damage your sound system, if not your own hearing, if you send too strong a signal through it. With your keyboard's master volume slider set at about 3/4 of the way up, bring your amplifier's volume up slowly and carefully to a comfortable, safe listening level. Now for the music. The demo sequences are already set up to play back in order, so all you have to do is to press the Start/Stop key to start the music. There are 6 sequences in all, so sit back and enjoy them. The first thing you see on the M1 is its front panel. Let's take some time to acquaint you with how to get around on this instrument. At the top left is the master volume slider. It controls the overall volume of the instrument. Directly below the master volume slider is the joystick. This small spring-loaded lever has many functions, but I'll outline just the main ones in this section. The most obvious use is for pitch bend. Pitch bend is used to simulate string bending on guitars and lipping up or down on brass or woodwind instruments. The left and right motion of the joystick for pitch bending is a technique that takes a while to master, but it can produce some very interesting musical effects. Another use of the joystick is to introduce pitch modulation, usually referred to as vibrato. Bringing vibrato in with the joystick by pushing it forward like this can be a useful tool for creating more realistic phrasing. Listen as I use the joystick on program 04 Guitar for both pitch bend and vibrato. Another use for the joystick is when you pull it back towards you. A common use for this is to access other forms of modulation, such as filter modulation. A good example of this is program 18, Flute. Notice when I hold down a note using this flute program and pull back on the joystick that I get a filter modulation similar to a flute vibrato. The joystick on the M1 is a versatile and indispensable musical tool. Back up and to the right of the joystick are the 8 mode select keys. The top left key, marked INT, is for selecting internal programs, combinations, and sequences. The top right key, marked card, is for selecting programs, combinations, and sequences on a RAM or ROM card. Directly below the internal key is the combi key. This key selects combination sound setups. These setups are combinations of individual sounds such as keyboard splits and layers or multi-timbral setups. There are 100 combinations available internally on the M1 with the possibility of accessing up to 100 more using a RAM or ROM card. The key to the right is Edit Combi. Once you've selected a combination number, it's possible to use the Edit Combi key to access the parameters of that combination to set up your own personal preferences. The key below Combi is called Program. This is the key used to select individual sounds such as a trumpet, piano, or a set of drums. There are 100 programs available internally, with another 100 possible using a ROM or RAM card. Now we come to Edit Program. This gives the user access to the broad range of programming parameters of the M1, enabling one to create or edit sounds. Editing programs on the M1 is very similar in style to an analog synthesizer, and for those who are interested, it's not difficult to learn. The next key is called the sequencer key. This selects the sequencer section. Next is the global key. This takes the user into the global section. To the right of the mode select keys is a large section containing the backlit LCD display, the value slider and up and down keys, and the cursor position keys. To the right are the page plus and page minus keys. The value slider and keys enable you to change the values of parameters one at a time with the keys, or a large amount at a time using the slider. These controls are used with almost every editing change on the instrument. The cursor position keys, marked with the letters A through H, enable you to move the cursor to the right and left. The page plus minus keys help you to move from page to page within each section of the instrument. The numerical keypad also includes a bank hold key, a compare key, and the record, start, and stop sequencer keys. Let's talk about the bank hold key. When this key is depressed, the program or combination group currently showing on the screen is locked in, like 10s, 20s, and 30s, so that you can select any one of those 10 numbers simply by pushing the second digit of the desired number. The compare key is a very helpful key. When editing programs, it enables you to toggle back and forth between the original sound and its edited sound for comparison purposes. Finally, we come to the sequencer keys. The record key switches the sequencer into record ready status. The start-stop key simply starts and stops a sequence. Up to the right from the numerical keypad is the card slot for inserting RAM and ROM program cards. Let's do an exercise to learn how to get around on the M1. Let's start by inserting a PCM ROM card set. We'll use the organ PCM card set MSC-9S. This set includes two cards, a program data card and a PCM data card. Insert the program data card facing the keyboard into the top card slot beneath the writing that says Program Sequence Data. Push in the card firmly until it stops. Now slide the PCM card face up into the rear panel slot beneath the writing PCM Data. You have just added 100 programs, 100 combinations, and 1/2 of a megabyte's worth of PCM samples to your M1. There are also 3 demo sequences that can be accessed by switching to sequencer mode, pushing the card key, and pressing the start key. Now press the program key. If you want an internal program, press the internal key. For card programs, press the card key first. The same holds true for combinations. Now let's go shopping for some sounds. With so many program sounds, there's a vertical numbering scheme that will help you find your way around. Programs and combinations are arranged in a certain numerical order by types with regard to the second digit of the number. Dramatic synth sounds end with 0. Keyboard instruments like electric pianos, clavinets, organs, and so forth end with 1. Brass and woodwind instruments end with a number 2. Vocal sounds end with 3. Guitars end with a number 4. Struck percussion sounds end with 5. Basses end with a number 6. More orchestral sounds end with 7. Flutes and some more synth sounds with a number 8. And finally, percussion and sound effects end with a number 9. Let's say that I wanted to hear some of the guitar sounds. We now know that they'll all end with a number 4, so I'll go through them one by one. 04, guitar 1. Distortion guitar, 14. 24, 12-string. And so forth. Let's say that I want to select a program from the organ PCM card set. I would press the card key to access the card, and I can now select any of the 100 programs and combinations from the card. How about CO1, the legend? The procedure for moving through the combinations is identical. To choose combination setup, simply press the combination key, and you're ready to go. By the way, when sequencing, you're able to use programs from both the internal and card banks. Now let's get more comfortable with the cursor keys. First, let's select program internal 01 for piano 16 foot. Now go into Edit Program. We now find ourselves on the first page of the Edit Program section. There are several pages in this section involving different display screens. We can select them by using the page plus or minus keys. Push the page plus key once. In the display screen, you see on the left a blinking short underline. This is the cursor. Any value that it underlines can be changed using the value slider and keys. With the cursor position keys, move the cursor to the right so that it's directly beneath 16 foot, which stands for the octave of the sound. Letter E ought to do it. Now that you've highlighted the octave, push the value plus key once, listening to the piano. You have just raised it an octave. Push the value plus key once more. One more octave higher. Now move the value back to 16 foot. Here's a great spot to point out Korg's helpful display cues. Notice that as I move the cursor from place to place, that there are abbreviations before the numbers. For instance, to the left, there's an L79. To find out what the L stands for, move the cursor underneath the parameter, look up at the top right of the window, and it'll tell you oscillator level. In other words, the volume of this multi-sound. Page up to the next page. Oscillator 1, pitch EG. The cursor is underneath S plus 00, and we see that S stands for start level. Move the cursor over one place, and our display cue tells us that AT stands for attack time. These display cues are found in all the display windows of the M1 and definitely serve to make your life easier. Pause the VCR now and get some more practice going from page to page, moving the cursor around the pages and changing values. It's really quite easy once you get the hang of it. By the way, you can't destroy the program by doing this, since you'll not be writing these changes into memory. The rear panel is important since this is where you make all of your connections for hooking up to your sound system, other MIDI equipment, as well as an electrical outlet. Facing the back of the rear panel to the far right is the stereo headphone jack. To its left, you see 4 audio outputs. They're labeled 1L, 2R, 3, and 4. 1L and 2R usually act as the left and right stereo mix outputs. Outputs 3 and 4 are available for outputting specific sounds for external processing. Another use would be if you were to be playing live using a split keyboard setup with a bass sound in the left hand and a piano sound in the right. You could send the bass sound out of its own output to send it to a bass amp. There are also 3 pedal inputs: pedal input 1, pedal input 2, and damper pedal input. Next to the pedal inputs is the display contrast knob. Depending on the angle you're viewing the screen from, you can use this knob to adjust the contrast of the display. Next to the contrast knob are the MIDI in, out, and through jacks. It's here that you connect MIDI cables leading to and from other MIDI devices. After the MIDI connections comes the PCM card slot. Korg is well known for maintaining an extensive library of sounds for its products, and the M1 is no exception. These sounds come in 2 categories: PCM ROM expansion card sets and program combination cards. A program combination card contains new program sounds using the M1's onboard PCM samples. A PCM ROM expansion card set consists of 2 cards. The PCM card contains 1/2 more megabytes of new PCM samples, and the program card contains programs, combinations, and global data. Next to the card slot is the on-off switch. On the far left of the keyboard is the connection for your power cord. So much for the back panel. The global mode covers the utility parts of the M1. Since it affects all the other parts of the M1, I'll deal with it now. Select Program 01 Piano 16, and I'll run you through global a page at a time. Press the global key. The first page is for master tuning. The pitch can be adjusted up or down by using the data entry keys or slider. The M1 can be tuned sharp or flat up to 50 cents either way. Next page, key transpose. The keyboard can be transposed an octave up or down by half steps. Having a hard time playing a song in a certain key? Use the key transpose to make it easier. You can change it with the data entry slider or keys. By the way, when you transpose the keyboard, the new transposition is also sent out via MIDI to your other instruments. Next page, damper switch polarity. Some manufacturers' damper or sustain pedals are wired with different polarities. If you find that your damper pedal is not working correctly, You can change the polarity by using your value up or down key to change the value from minus to plus or vice versa. Now page up to the pedal assign page. Pedal inputs 1 and 2 can be used for a variety of functions, and I'll step through them with my value up key to show them to you. Pedal 1 or 2 could be used for program up, program down, sequence start and stop, effect 1 or 2, on off, volume, filter cutoff, effect 1 or 2 control, or data entry. A complete pedal setup for the M1 would ideally include 3 pedals. You would have 1 damper pedal, Korg DS1 or PS1, a Korg EXP2 controller pedal, and a PS1 switch pedal. The EXP2 can function both as a switch for things such as changing program numbers up 1 or down 1, starting and stopping the sequencer, and as a continuous controller pedal for adjusting volume or changing effects. For starters, press the A key on the bottom left of the display and select Effect 1 Control. Now hit the E key to select your preference for pedal 2. Notice that pedal 2 is now showing in the top right. Change pedal 2 to volume. I have a PS1 pedal plugged into pedal input number 1, an EXP2 into pedal input 2, and a DS1 into the damper pedal input. This is my recommended choice for pedal assignments. You'll see why later. Next page is for scales. Equal temperament 2, pure major and pure minor with selectable keys are available, along with a user programmable scale. The next page is for selecting the tunings of a programmable user scale. The next 4 pages are for drum kits 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each drum kit can have 30 sounds assigned across the keyboard. Each sound is individually tunable and adjustable for volume, decay, and panning to any of the 4 effects processor inputs. By the way, drum kit number 4 is empty, so let's page up to it and assign a drum to show you how it's done. First, select program 09 so that we'll have a drum program set up to listen through for effects. Now back to global and drum kit number 4. The screen is showing number 00 for the first position with nothing assigned to it. Move the cursor over to the next spot underneath the 2 dashes, and using the value key, go through some sounds. Since C2 is showing as the default for this sound, hit that note on the keyboard. Let's go with drum sound 05, snare 2. But let's change its position on the keyboard 10 keys down to D1. Now move the cursor over 1 position to instrument tune. Adjust the value slider up and down to change the tuning of our snare drum. Let's leave it at -12. Cursor over to instrument level. Here we can adjust the volume of the snare. Next over is decay. Listen as I adjust it. Move to the second drum sound position and assign the crash symbol to it. Assign the crash to E1. Move over to the decay parameter and set it to -35. With the instrument pan, position it over to the side at 9-1. Now move to the drum kit position number 2 and assign the same crash and place it on F1. This time set the decay to -80. This will simulate the same cymbal being struck and quickly choked by the drummer. Pan it to the same position as the first cymbal, and you have two types of cymbal events. These parameters are available to all 30 sounds in each drum kit. You can go into and completely change all of your drum kits to your personal preferences. Next page is the first MIDI page. It's here that you set the global MIDI channel. Set the sequencer clock to internal or external, and turn the M1's keyboard on or off to itself by using the local on-off parameter. This is important when using the M1 with an external sequencer. Next page is for MIDI filters. By adjusting these parameters to enable or disable, you can tell the M1 to regard or disregard incoming program changes, aftertouch, control data, or system-exclusive data. Very important tip. When using the M1 sequencer, we want to save as much memory as possible. It's a good idea to set the aftertouch filter to disable, since aftertouch uses a lot of memory. Press the C key and change Enable to Disable. If you do need aftertouch for a particular track, you can always go back to Global and turn it on temporarily. The next 3 pages are for memory protection for internal and card programs, combinations, and sequences. The next page is for memory allocation. I'll talk about this feature in the sequencer section. Next page is for MIDI data dumping. Since the M1 has no disk drive, it's possible to use an external device with a disk drive, such as a data filer, an external sequencer or computer to store your programs, combinations, and sequences. You'd have to connect a MIDI cable from the M1 MIDI out to the device's MIDI in. After adjusting the device to be able to receive the data, you could transmit it by selecting the data you intend to send and then pushing the key under the word dump. Your choices for sending are programs, combinations, global data, sequence data, or just plain everything. The next page addresses loading from ROM and RAM memory cards. You can be selective in what you load by choosing either programs, combinations, or programs, combinations, and sequences, or just sequences. When loading programs and combinations from a card, the global data is also automatically loaded. To load your choice, just press the key under the word Load, and then the key under the word Yes. Since I don't want to load at this moment, I'll press the word No. The same basic procedure holds true for saving, except that a card has to be formatted before it's ready to be saved to from an M1. Since the M1 is completely programmable, you might want to create some new programs and combinations of your own. If you do, you'll have to replace some of the factory sounds with your new ones. To use the sequencer, you'll have to erase what's already in there. For these reasons, it's a smart idea to back up the original factory setup on a RAM memory card. Korg offers 2 versions, the MCR03, which holds 1 bank of programs, combinations, and global data, and the MCR04, which holds 4 complete banks. The advantages of RAM cards are that they save time. You just plug it into the keyboard and you're ready to go. They're very, very convenient. On the other hand, they're fairly expensive. I keep just enough cards for the things I need to get at quickly. The rest of my data is stored in my computer on disks. Important. You cannot save all programs, combinations, and sequences onto 1 card. If you'll have no need for the factory sequences in the future, there's no need to back them up. Here's how the procedure works. I'll use an MCR03 card. First, you must install the battery that comes with the MCR03 card. With the back side of the card facing up, slide out the battery holder. Lay the battery into the battery holder so that the groove in the battery fits the shape of the holder. Now slide the battery holder with the battery back into the RAM card. By the way, I've had this MCR03 card for 5 years and it's still on its first battery. Now insert the card with the label facing you into the top card slot. Make sure that the memory protect switch at the top of the card is set to off. Press the global key on the front panel. Now press the 9 key on the numerical keypad. Press the page plus key once, and you'll see Format Card in the display window showing 100 programs, 100 combis below. you must first format the card, meaning to prepare it to receive information from the M1. In this instance, we're preparing it to receive all 100 programs and combinations. Press the value up key once, and you'll see another choice you can make. 50 programs, 50 combinations, 4,200 sequence events. Up once more, and you could save a 7,700 note sequence. Move down 2 clicks to get us back to 100 programs and 100 combinations. If the card had been previously used for something else, this formatting would also erase it. In the lower right corner of the display, you'll see the word Format in brackets. Press the key directly below the word Format, and the screen will change. Now reading, Are you sure? Since we are sure, press the key beneath the word Yes. Now we're ready to save to the card. Are you ever in a live playing situation where you just like to adjust the amount of reverb or maybe the brightness of the sound that you're playing? That's where the powerful performance editing features of the M1 come in. These features allow you to make editing changes without going into the main editing mode. There are 8 parameters moving from left to right using the cursor position keys that can be adjusted. Oscillator balance, filter cutoff, amplitude, keyboard tracking for the filter and amplifier, velocity sensitivity, attack time, release time, and effects balance. Here are a couple of examples. Make sure we have program 01 selected. Highlight the VDF cutoff in the screen by pushing the cursor key directly beneath it. By the way, VDF cutoff stands for the high frequency cutoff point of the low pass filter. With the value slider or keys, you can adjust the brightness of a program. In the screen, you will see the value 00. Let's play a note and listen to how bright it is. Now, if I push the value slider up, the sound will get brighter. If I lower the slider, the sound gets duller. Cursor over to the last parameter to the right for dry effects balance. This parameter enables you to adjust the wet-dry mix of the effects in the program. Move the slider up and you hear more reverb. Slide it back down and the sound becomes drier and plainer. Performance editing is a great shortcut for changing your sounds during a live playing situation. Now when somebody in the band tells you that there's too much reverb on your piano, you know how to back it off a little. By the way, if you would like your live performance edit to become permanent, you could go into Edit Program mode, go to keypad number 9, and write it. Before we get started, I'd like to take a second to clarify just what is a sequencer. First of all, many people have not had the opportunity to use a sequencer and are unsure as to exactly what a sequencer is or what it does. A sequencer is very much like an old player piano. A roll of perforated paper travels through a mechanism in the piano. The holes in the paper roll correspond to notes on the piano. When the piano sees the holes, it plays the respective notes. What if you could take a new roll of paper with no holes in it and start it going through the piano mechanism? Start playing the piano, and as you're playing, the piano is punching the appropriate holes into the piano roll. A do-it-yourself player piano. At the end of your performance, you rewind the roll and start it going through the piano again. It would then replay the piano just as you had played it. That's how a sequencer works, but instead of punching holes in paper, it stores the note information into an internal computer. When you're finished and satisfied with your performance, the data can be saved onto a RAM card or to a data filer with a computer disk. Also, instead of one roll's worth of music, the sequencer can have many. They're referred to as tracks. Each track can address a different sound, not just a piano. The M1 sequencer has 8 tracks, each with the ability to have its own separate sound and part playing simultaneously. You have a lot of power at your fingertips. If you're using your M1 with an external sequencer, since there are 8 tracks, it is therefore 8-part multitimbral if used in song mode, and 8-part multitimbral if used in combination mode. By the way, the word multitimbral refers to the ability of an instrument to reproduce many different sounds at one time. Your M1 came loaded with factory demo sequences which are backed up with battery power, meaning that they are retained in the M1's memory even when the power switch is turned off. These factory sequences take up a high percentage of the available sequencer memory, which you can verify by looking at the top right corner of the display. It'll tell you the percentage of memory that is left. What we want to do is to erase all of the sequences on board so that we can wind up with 100% free memory. Very important. When we erase the memory in the sequencer, you'll have no way of getting the demos back unless you've backed them up onto either an MCR03 or MCR04 RAM card, or have done a MIDI data dump to an external device. Instructions for how to do this are found in the section dealing with the global area of the M1. If you want to keep your demos, back them up before you go any further in this section. Now let's erase all of the sequence data in the M1. First of all, realize that sequencer memory can be found in two places: on the tracks and in the patterns. One of the ways that you can maximize memory in the M1 sequencer is by the use of patterns which can be, in a sense, loaned to a track. To erase memory, we have to first erase all songs and then erase all patterns. To erase songs, press keypad number 3 and press the Page Plus key. This takes us to the Song Initialize page. It's here that we can initialize a new song by erasing the old one and by giving the new one a meter. We do this by pressing the key beneath the word EXEC, which stands for Execute. If the words "Are you sure" pop up on the screen, we know that there is a song present. To erase the song, press the key beneath Yes. The screen will now show the word completed. Now press the same key, G, and the former initialize screen will reappear. With the cursor below the song number 0, change it to 1 by using the value up key. Hit Execute again, say Yes, and you will see the word completed again. Hit G, change number 1 to number 2, and execute, going through the procedure again and again until all songs are erased. If you push the Execute key and the word complete shows immediately, this means that there is no song at the song number. When you finished, reset the song number to 0 and press keypad number 0 to get back to page 1 of the sequencer. Pause your tape and initialize the rest of your songs. We've initialized all of our songs, and we see that there is still some memory being occupied in the sequencer. The rest of the memory is to be found in the pattern section, keypad number 6. To erase patterns, page up 2 presses to the Pattern Initialize page. The patterns will have to be initialized one at a time, just like you did with the songs. Starting with pattern 00, press the Execute key and say Yes. Hit the G key and change to the next pattern number and repeat the same procedure. There are 100 patterns in the M1, although they're not all filled with data. All patterns must be initialized to bring the sequencer memory up to 100% free. Pause your VCR again and complete this procedure, then reset the pattern number to 00 and go back to keypad number 0 to verify that you now have 100% memory free. While the M1 sequencer is full of features, its memory is somewhat limited. The total number of notes available, if your keyboard has 100 programs and combinations, comes to 4,400. There's a way to cut the number of programs and combinations to 50 each and give you 7,700 notes in the sequencer. Before doing this, make sure that you saved your internal programs and combinations to a RAM card or data filer. Now, press Global and then keypad number 7. Page down 1 page, and you'll see the memory allocation page. It reads 100 programs, 100 combis, 4,400 notes sequencer. Now press the value up key and watch the screen change to 50 programs, 50 combinations, and 7,700 note sequence. If you were to press the Execute key with this screen showing, you would immediately erase programs and combinations 50 through 99, but you would expand your sequencer memory to 7,700 notes. If you wanted to do this, you should first go through all your programs to determine the ones you can or can't do without. Put the 50 programs you intend to keep in the first 50 memory locations by writing them individually. Simply find the memory locations of sounds from 00 to 49 you don't feel that you'll need, and override them with programs from 50 to 99 that you can't live without. Once you've seen to it that your favorite 50 programs are in the first 50 places, go into Global, into the memory allocation page and change it from 100 programs, 100 combis, 4,400 note sequencer to 50, 50, and 7,700 notes. Press the key below execute, say yes, and you'll have a bigger sequencer. Another more satisfactory way would be to have an MCR03 RAM card inserted containing all of the factory programs and combinations. At that point, reallocate your memory to 7,700 notes. You haven't lost any programs or combis since they're still to be found on the RAM card and can be used along with internal programs. For our purposes, I'll just use my M1 in normal mode with 4,400 notes available. Now let's go to the sequencer. Press the sequencer key. I'm going to show you how to use the sequencer by creating a sequence from scratch and explaining as I go along. Now let's look at the first sequencer page, page 0. To the left are the letters RP, which stand for record playback, the normal mode of operation. With the cursor beneath R and P, use the value up key once to select P.IN. This stands for punch in. The M1 does punch in and out just like a professional tape recorder. Page up 1, and you'll see the punch in and out measure selections at the right of the display. Now page back 1 and change back to RP. Cursor over one place to the right. Here's where you select the song number. One more to the right is where you change the recording track number. There are 8 in all. Next to the right is the measure number. To the right again, we see the tempo. One more to the right, and we see the program number that has been assigned to this track. To the right again, and we see V99, which stands for the volume of this track. 99 is the loudest, and 00 is the quietest. Finally, at the far right are 2 arrows pointing at each other. This is the reset indicator. No matter where you are in the song, if you push the key below the reset sign, you'll bring the song back to the beginning of measure 1. Another important page I want to tell you about is keypad number 4. This is the track parameter page. Here is where you make permanent assignments to a track, which are from left to right: track number, program number, volume, transpose, detune, panning, and track memory protect. Use this page to lock in your preferences. I like to have effects going when I record a sequence, so I'm going to show you a great shortcut to use for getting a decent sounding effect setup in a hurry. We're going to use a feature called Effect Copy. It's found by going to page 8, the effects page, and then paging up 5 times to bring up the Effect Copy page. The cursor is under the word song, but we want to copy the effects from a program, so change song to program with the down value key. Move the cursor over to the program number and change it to internal 09, the program number for drums 1. Drum programs usually have a good all-around effect setting for sequences, so we want to copy the effect settings from program 09. Now press the key under the word copy and say yes. Now go back to page 0. Page up 1 to the recording page and turn on the metronome by pressing the key beneath MM and changing off to on. To the far left is the setting for input quantize. Quantize means time correction for your playing. For instance, if the busiest part you played on a track were 1/8 notes, you could quantize the track to 1/8 notes, and every note you played would automatically be shifted perfectly to the nearest 1/8 note. On the M1, you can quantize 2 different ways: as you play in a part or afterwards. The characters in the display mean as follows. In the display, there's a quarter note with a slash and the number 48. This means that a quarter note is divided into 48 clocks. This is the highest resolution, which is, in effect, no quantizing. If you want to quantize the 16th notes, set the number to 4. Since a quarter note divided by 4 would give you 16th notes. For a swing quantize, set it to 3, which would give you 1/8 note triplets. For 1/8 note quantizing, set it to 2, and so on. I'll leave it at 2 for 1/8 notes and start my sequence with a drum groove. Now move to page 0 and set the program for track 1 to 09. First, I'll play the hi-hat part for 4 measures. Press the record key, and we'll hear the metronome start. Notice that the record key lights up red and the start key flashes with the metronome. If I decided not to record after all, I could press the record key again and it would stop. Now back to record. When the start key is pressed, it flashes a red light on beat 1 of each measure and a green light on all others. You'll notice also that the metronome has a higher pitch on beat 1s to help you know where you are in the measure. Now press the start key and we'll have a 2-measure count before the sequencer starts recording. Here we go. Now let's listen back to it. Reset. Now let's put in the kick and snare part. Change the track record number to 2 and select program 09 for this track also. Same procedure again with the record and start keys. Now we have a basic groove for our sequence. There are many ways to build a drum track. Sometimes I use several tracks for drums so that I have tracks to experiment on. Once I've arrived at something I'm happy with, I want to be able to have all drum tracks wind up on only one track. I can do this by bouncing them down. Here's how. Press keypad number 5 and page down twice. This is the copy bounce page. Since we want to bounce instead of copy, change the word copy to bounce. Move the cursor to the right and set the source track number to 2 and the destination track number to 1. We want to bounce track 2 to track 1. Now press exec, say yes, and it's done. Go to page 0 and play. By the way, when we bounce track 2 over to track 1, track 2 was also erased. Very important. You can only bounce tracks which have the same program. You can't have drums and saxophones playing at the same time on the same track. Now I'd like to have this drum beat to last for a long time to serve as a basic groove as I write my song. For this reason, I'll convert these 4 measures into a pattern by first creating an empty 4-measure pattern, then copying the 4 measures from track 1 into it. Watch this. The pattern keypad number is number 6. Page up twice to the pattern initialize page. Choose pattern 00. Make sure that the beat is set to 4. And give it a length of 4 measures. Push under exec, and it's done. Now we have an empty 4-measure pattern looking for notes. Page up once to the pattern get from track page. Select track 1 as the source track, set the source measure to 1, and the pattern number to 00, and hit execute. Now press keypad 6 and play the pattern by pushing the start key. Now we have the drum beat in the pattern. We also have it on the first 4 measures of track 1, which is duplication and therefore a waste of memory. Since I intend to put the pattern onto track 1 many times, I'll first erase the notes on the track to make room for the pattern. Keypad number 5 and page down once for the track erase page. Choose track 1, which is showing, and hit execute and say yes. Go to page 0 and play the sequence. Nothing happens. The track is empty, but don't cry, since we have a pattern to put onto the track. Check this out. Keypad number 5, the put copy pattern page. We're going to put, not copy, pattern 00 onto track 1 over and over. The reason we select put over copy is that copy actually copies the notes back onto the track, which uses more memory. Putting only tells the track to play the pattern, which uses a lot less memory. Choose put, pattern 00, track 1 starting at measure 1, and execute. Notice that the measure number moves up by 4 to measure 5. Hit execute again. Now we're up to measure 9. Now I'll do it a bunch of times until I reach 101 measures. Go back to page 0. Start the sequencer. I now have 100 measures of drums, and I'm still showing 96% memory left. I did this by using patterns and by not using aftertouch. Now reset the measure counter. By the way, there's another way to make a pattern, and that's a way that's familiar to all of you who own drum machines. Here's how to do it. Go to page 6, the pattern real-time record page. Choose pattern 01, page up twice, give pattern 01 a length of 4 measures, and initialize it. Press 6 again, and press record, and I'll do the same pattern a new way. 2. Now I'm going to make some mistakes and show you how to correct them. Now I have 2 unwanted drum sounds in the pattern, one in measure 1 and the other in measure 4. I can remove them 2 ways. I'll get rid of the first note by going back into record mode, starting the pattern, then cursor over to the word add with the value up key, change add to remove. Now press the key beneath remove and hold down the wrong drum note during the time you originally played it. You hear that note the first time around, but the next time around it'll be gone. Here it is. It's gone. Now I'll get rid of the other one through event editing. Keypad to number 7, the event edit page. Change the word track to pattern. Since we're working on pattern 1, it's showing in the screen. To enter the event edit feature, press the record key and then the start stop key. A new screen pops up showing the various parameters of data in the pattern. From left to right are the measure number, the index number, meaning the first, second, third, and so forth event in the measure. Next, the beat and clock location. Remember, there are 48 clocks to a beat. The type of event, which in this case will be notes, however it could be control data, program changes, aftertouch, or pitch bend data. The velocity with which I struck the key, and the length of the event by beats and clocks. Since my mistake happened in measure 4, I switch to measure 4. And then move over to the index number and run through the events until I find the unwanted note. There it is. To get rid of it, I can delete it by pressing under the delete in the screen. There, it's gone. To exit the events edit section, press the start stop key and we're out. Keypad number 6 and play the pattern. They're gone. This pattern could also be put onto any track. Now let's record a piano part. Go to page 4, change to track 2, and set the program number to 01 for the piano. Now go to page 0, page up once, and set the input quantize to a quarter note divided by 48 for no quantizing. Now page back to page 0 and record a piano part for 8 measures. Great. That'll do. Now let's get to a bass part on track 3. Page 4, track 3, program 06 for that great fretless bass. I'm not going to use input quantize on the bass as I record it so that I can show you how to quantize after the fact. Here we go. Now let's listen back. Now let's talk about quantizing after we've recorded a part. To straighten up the timing of the bass part, keypad number 6 and page down 1 to the quantize page. Cursoring and changing values from left to right, select track 3, the bass track, the start measure at 1, the length at 8 measures, and the resolution at 1/8 notes, which would show up as a quarter note divided by 2. Leave the word to all, meaning we want to quantize everything on the track. Now execute the quantize and say yes. Page 0 and play back the change. By the way, after you've quantized notes in a track, you're not able to unquantize them. Therefore, if you want to be able to get back to the way it was before quantizing, a good idea would be to copy this track to an empty one and experiment with it. Now back to page 0 for an organ part on track 4. With the organ PCM card set inserted, I can set the program number for track 4 to card 01 for a great organ sound. Go into record and let's have some fun. That'll do fine. Now we have 4 tracks of music for 8 measures. Let's clean up our mix a little bit now. Page up 1 page from 0 and turn off the metronome and listen to the sequence. The organ's too loud. As I play the sequence, I move the cursor over to the volume setting for track number 4 and experiment. There, 55 seems better than 99. To lock in this new volume, I'll go to the track parameter page, keypad number 4, and reset the volume of track 4 to 55. While we're at it, wouldn't it be nice if we could put the piano to one side and the organ to another? Page 4, go to track 2, cursor over to the pan pot parameter, and change it from 5.5 to 9.1. If you're hooked up in stereo, you'll hear the piano move to the side. The panning parameter allows you to assign a track or sound to any of the effects processor inputs, such as anywhere between inputs A and B, or C plus D, or D. I'll explain this later in the effects section. Now change track number 4 to 1.9. Just the opposite. Now play it. That makes for a much more interesting mix. If you wanted, you could change the key of the song by moving the transpose like this. Page 4. Transpose everything but the drums. Track number 2, up 1/2 step. Track number 3, up 1/2 step. Track number 4, up 1/2 step. Now listen. Easy, right? Now I'll reset the transpositions back to the original. Now for punch in and out. We want to add something starting at measure 9. Go to page 0 and change record play to punch in, and then page up 1 page. Turn the metronome back on and cursor to the punch in measure and set it to 9. cursor to the punch-out measure, and run the slider all the way up to end, since we have no definite ending measure. Now go back to page 0, cursor to the measure number, and run the value slider up to the top, and see that it stops at measure 9 automatically. What I'm going to do is to back it up 2 measures so that I can hear the music play up to the beginning of the new part. The new piano part won't start recording until it reaches measure 9. Here we go. You'll notice that we didn't hear the drums playing at first. The reason is that you don't hear the notes in a pattern when you start in the middle of the pattern. At measure 9, we have the start of a new pattern, so we'll hear the drums then. Now let's go to the bass part, track 3. Page up to set input quantize to 8th notes. Page 0 to record. Set the measure number to 2 measures before 9. Here we go. Now let's add the organ part, track 4. Page up to set input quantize to no quantize. In other words, quarter note divided by 48. Now let's record. There you have it. Obviously, it would be a waste of tape for me to do an entire song, but you get the idea. If any of these parts were to be used again later in the song, you could save memory by converting them into patterns and putting them back onto the tracks, just like I did with the drums. For instance, the bass part I played so far could be converted into 2 8-measure long patterns, which could be inserted anywhere you like. The same holds true for any other sections. By the way, let's reset the sequencer to record play mode and turn off the metronome. Here's a great trick that's easy to do. Let's say that I want to do a gradual tempo change leading up to measure 9. All I have to do is to choose an empty track to record on. Track 5 will work just fine. When I put the sequencer into record mode and press the start key, you'll notice that the cursor lands on the tempo parameter. I can then use the value slider or keys to make the change. I prefer to use the keys for a gradual tempo change. Watch me go through the procedure. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, play. Now I'll go back and play the sequence to see if I like the result. Although this doesn't make a lot of musical sense, I hope you get the idea how the procedure works. If your tempo change doesn't work out this time, you can always go back and do it over until you're satisfied. Once you have it the way you want it, you can bounce your tempo track to any other recorded track to free this one up for more data. For the time being, keypad number 5, page down to track erase, track 5, hit execute, say yes, and our tempo change is erased. A word to the wise. I'd recommend that you always keep an empty track available right up to the end so that you can experiment with new parts that, if they work out, could be bounced to other tracks. Now, how about inserting control data and program changes? Control data takes the form of MIDI controller numbers. Everything that you do in the sequencer is recorded. Every time you press down the damper pedal, you insert a control change. Your damper pedal uses controller number 64. To change volume, you'd use controller number 7. There are many controller numbers that you can use in the sequencing process. There's a list of most of them in your M1 manual on page 105. Program changes allow us to change the sound in the middle of a track. Let's say that we want the piano sound at measure 9 to change to a clavinet. We can insert a program change by going into Event Edit, keypad 7, set the track number to 2, push the record key, push the start-stop key, and here we are. Let's change the measure number to 9, and we see that the first index number or event in measure 9 occurs after beat 1. This is good since it gives us time to insert a program change. You don't want to insert a program change when a note is playing on the track. It could clip off the sound of the note. By the way, you can't directly insert a program change, but you can insert another step and convert the step into a program change. Press the Insert key, and you will have duplicated the first step in measure 9, which happens to be a note. Notice that step 1 and 2 are the same. Now go back to step number 1, change the location to beat 1 clock 00. Cursor to the note number, take the value slider and run it to the top, and you'll see CNTL for control number. Value key down to set it to program for program changes. Now we see a program number to the right. Change it to internal 61 for the clavinet. Now leave Event Edit. Page 0. Start the sequence and listen to the piano change to the clav at measure 9. It worked. One problem, the clavinet is too loud. We need to tell the track to turn down the clavinet at measure 9. We'll do that with a control change using MIDI control number 7 for MIDI volume. Back to keypad number 7, track 2, press the record and start keys. Go to measure 9. With the first event, our new program change showing, press Insert. We now have 2 identical program changes, which you see as I move from index 002 to 001. I'll take the second one and change the measure location to 1 clock later. Cursor over to the event and change PROG to CNTL by pressing the up value key once. Now the screen changes showing a place for a control number with a value next to it. I'll choose control number 7 for volume and give it a value of 70 out of a possible 127. Exit Event Edit mode by pressing the Start-Stop key, and we're out. Listen for the volume of the clavinet at measure 9. That's better. Now let's listen to the sequence for a second and listen to the effects. Not bad, but I think it could use a little more reverb. Keypad 8 for the Effect 1 page. Effect 1 is the exciter. We'll leave it alone. Page up twice to Effect 2 page, which shows Ensemble Hall reverb. Page up once more. Cursoring from left to right, taking note of the display cues at the top right, we have reverb time, which is 2.3 seconds. Pre-delay, meaning the time it takes the sound to hit its first reflection, of 30 milliseconds. Earlier reflection level of 74. High damping, which has to do with high frequency roll-off in the reverb, is set to 28. 99 would be the dullest, with 0 being the brightest. Then low and high EQ. Low and high EQ is fancy wording for bass and treble. Finally, the parameter we're after, dry effect balance. The display is showing 82% dry signal and 18% affected with reverb. Let's change the ratio to 75-25. And listen to the difference. Whoops, too much reverb for my taste. Let's try 78-22 and listen to the sequence. Much better. Another quick way to experiment is to adjust the reverb time. Let's try changing it to 1.2 seconds. We have more reverb, but a shorter decay time. That keeps the effect from becoming too overbearing. I'll go into more detail on effects in the effects section of this video. Now let's give our song a name. Keypad 3, and we're at the song naming page. At the top of the display is the word New Song with arrows directly beneath. I'll call this little ditty the M1 demo. Cursor below the letter of the first word and change it to M. Cursor under the right arrow to move to the next letter. Change it to 1 by moving the slider all the way down and then value up keying to the number 1. To the right again for a space by pulling the slider down all the way, which leaves nothing in the display. To the right, choose an uppercase D. To the right, and choose a lowercase e. Okay. To the right again, and choose a lowercase m, and then a lowercase o. Get rid of the G at the end of the word by replacing it with a space, and there you have it. What if you wanted to erase just one track? Keypad number 5, and page down once to get to the track erase page. Set the track number to a recorded one, and press the key beneath the word exec. The screen will change to Are You Sure? Press the key under the desired answer, and the track will be erased. Since I don't want to erase a track now, I'll just say no. Let's say that I wanted to add a couple of measures to the front of this song. Keypad number 5, and page up twice to the Measure, Insert, Delete, and Erase page. The first parameter on the left shows the word Insert, which is the word I want. Since I want 2 measures for all tracks, I'll change the track number to All by pushing the slider up all the way. Moving over to the right, I'll set my measure number to 1 since I want to insert measures at the very beginning of the song. To the right, I'll select 2 for 2 measures. Push Execute, and it's done. The entire song has been pushed back 2 measures, opening up 2 measures at the beginning. Listen. 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Deleting measures works the same way. You could, in effect, chop out a range of measures by deleting them. The measures after the area would then be attached to the measures before. You can do this on an individual track or on all tracks. Erase measures. This is very useful for cleaning unwanted data off a track. For an example, I'll play a trumpet part on track 5, but first I'll go to Global. Keypad number 5, page up once, and turn on Aftertouch. Now back to the sequencer and select track 5 to record on. Page up and turn on the metronome. Keypad 0 and choose Program 12. Hit record and record during those empty measures. Lovely, isn't it? Keypad 5 and page up twice. Set the left parameter to erase, track number to 5, measure number to 1, and length to the whole track by pushing the slider up all the way. To the right, change All to Control, meaning control data, which includes Aftertouch. I'm going to strip Aftertouch from this track. Hit Execute. Am I sure? Yes. Now play it back. The Aftertouch is gone. This is a great way to gain back memory when you didn't intend to use Aftertouch. A word of warning, this would also strip any pitch bends or other controller data too. Now let's get rid of the trumpet altogether. Keypad number 5, page up twice, change to Erase, track 5, measure 1, the whole track, all events, Execute, I'm sure, yes. Now play. It's gone. Now let's delete the first two measures. Keypad number 5, page up twice, select Delete, then All Tracks, then measure 1 for 2 measures. Press the key below Execute, and it's done. See? Back to normal. This is a very useful page. Step recording is useful for people who have limited keyboard technique and for passages that are technically impossible to play. Change the song number 1. Keypad to number 9, page back once, and copy effects from program 09. Keypad to number 4, and set the program to 01, piano 16. Keypad to number 2. Here we set the track number and starting measure. We'll leave them both at 1. To enter step record, press the record key and then the start-stop key. A new screen shows up with the track number, measure number, and beat clock numbers at the top. From the bottom left are the parameters for adjusting each step's note value, selecting triplet or dotted values, selecting the dynamics value, staccato or tenuto preferences, or a rest. The rest value would be set at the step value. Let's play one of my favorite songs called Shavin' a Haircut. Here we go. Notice as I enter the notes that the measure and beat clock number changes. I'll also be entering dynamic markings. First note, a quarter note at fortissimo. The next 3 notes are 8th note triplets at mezzo forte. Now, 2 quarter notes at forte. A quarter note rest. A quarter note at triple forte. And a half note at triple forte. Now hit the start-stop key to exit step record. Let's play our line. Remember, each step can have its own dynamic value. For one more example, keypad number 5 and page down once. Erase this track. Now keypad number 4 and set the program to 09 for drums. Keypad number 2. Press record and start stop. And I'm going to enter a sforzando roll. I'll select 30-second notes and triple forte for the beginning dynamics. Now hit a couple of snares. And then drop the dynamics to the bottom, triple piano, and hit 3 snares. Raise to double piano and hit 3 more. Single piano, and 3 more, and so on until I reach triple forte again with a couple extras thrown in at the end. Now play the sequence. Step recording is very useful. Let's say that you want to record a sequence into the M1 from another sequencer, and you'd like to do all tracks at one time. You need to connect the MIDI out of the external sequencer to the MIDI in of the M1 and then set the M1 to multi-record. Since the external sequencer might have its tracks assigned to different MIDI channels, you should adjust the channels on the M1's tracks to the appropriate ones by paging up 6 pages to the MIDI channel page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's here where you can make your channel changes. Now go back to page 0 and set the M1 to multi-record mode. You do this by cursoring to the track number and running the data slider all the way up to reveal MLT. Then press the global key and keypad number 5. Cursor to CLK for clock and change to external meaning your M1 will become a slave to the external sequencer's clock. Now back to the sequencer. Whoops, we lost our MLT. Change the track back to MLT. Now you know that you must set the external clock before setting the M1 to multi-record. At this point, when you start the external sequencer playing, the M1 will start recording. When using the M1 with an external sequencer, I'd recommend setting up the M1 in combi mode instead of sequencer mode. With 100 internal combinations available, not to mention another 100 with a RAM card inserted, you have a lot of memory for song setups. I'll run you through my recommended procedure now. I'm assuming that you've backed up your M1 either onto a RAM card or by using a data dump. Select combination 00 film score. Press Edit Combi. Make sure that the combination type showing is multi. Page up. This is where the 8 program numbers will show up. See that they all have a program number showing. Page up. Here's where you assign the MIDI channel number for each timbre. These assignments are a personal choice, and it's a good thing to develop your own system that you will stick to. For instance, the new General MIDI standard places drums on MIDI channel 10. I'd advise you to start numbering the timbres with channel 2. Channel 1 on the M1 is currently the global MIDI channel and can therefore be used as the channel to select the combination number through a program change at the beginning of each sequence. Incidentally, I always like to leave an empty measure at the beginning of each sequence where I can select a combination number as well as timbre program numbers and volumes. Let's set our timbre channels now. Going from left to right, we'll start with channel 2 and move up a timbre at a time. Channel 2, channel 3, channel 4, channel 5, channel 6, channel 7, channel 8, and let's put the last timbre on channel 10 and use it for drums. Now page up. This is the key window top page, meaning the top note on the keyboard that is available for each timbre. We obviously want to have them all at our disposal, so run them all up to G9 with a slider. Next page. The same holds true for the bottom notes, but they're already assigned to the lowest note on the keyboard, so we'll leave them alone and page up again. This is for velocity top. 127 is the highest velocity and is what we want. Page up. 01 is the lowest velocity, so we are already set here. Page up. This page is for output levels. I'd advise setting them all to 99 and using control number 7 to set them with your sequencer. Next page. Set the transposition to 00 since you can transpose with your sequencer. Next page. Nothing should be detuned normally, and such is the case here. Page up. This is the pan pot page where each program sound can be panned to any of the effects processing inputs and then sent out of any of the 4 outputs. For the time being, set everything to 5, 5. In other words, dead center between inputs A and B. Page up. Since we obviously want to be able to send program changes to each timbre throughout a song, we want to enable each timbre to receive this information. They're already enabled. Next page. The same holds true for the damper pedal. Everything's correct here. Next page. The same for aftertouch, and it's already set up properly. Finally, control changes are enabled, which is what we want. Page up. As I said before, I would recommend a good generic effects setting for starting out a sequence. Remember, you can change the effects later if you feel like it. Let's just copy the effects from program 09 to save time. Keypad 9, page down once. Change combination to program, and set the program number to internal 09, and press the key under copy. Say yes. Now our song needs a name. Press keypad 9. I've already entered the letters of the name multiset in the same way we did when we named our combination. Press under write, and then say yes. Now hit the combi key. Each timbre in the combination will respond to program changes and volume changes on its own separate MIDI channel. You can use this combination as a template for other combinations. Each combination could have its own effect settings. You'll have to use a trick if you want to get a timbre to change from an internal program to one on a card when using your M1 with an external sequencer. It can't be done with a simple program change. It's got to be done with a sysx message. First, make sure that your external sequencer is able to receive and record system-exclusive data. Now, let's say that you want to set the first timbre in your combination, which in my combination is set to MIDI channel 2, to card program 31. All you have to do is to select C31 on the appropriate timbre and set up the sequencer to receive it, and simply press the cursor position key directly beneath it. Pressing the cursor key transmits the sysx message. That's all you have to do. Now you have to make sure that the M1 is enabled to receive sysx information, and we can check on this by hitting the global key, keypad 5, page up, and on the far right is EXCL for guess what? System exclusive. And we'll make sure that it is set to enable. Now back to Combi. Later on, if we want to select an internal program number such as I52, simply bring it up in the display prepare the sequencer, and transmit the message by pressing the key below the timbre. That's all there is to it. This gives you access to up to 200 programs. One more thing. When you're sequencing with an external sequencer, you may encounter a problem where your sounds sound out of phase. This is probably due to the fact that the keyboard of the M1 is set up normally. That is, it's playing itself. Unfortunately, since your M1's MIDI out is hooked into the computer, with the computer hooked back into the M1's MIDI in, you're playing each note twice. That's why it sounds weird. You're also using twice the polyphony, which is a real no-no. Your external computer has a feature that is called playthrough or echo back or something like that, which enables your playing to be sent back to the instrument. For this reason, we need to turn off the keyboard to itself. We do this by turning local to off. Press global, keypad number 5, and the right of the display, find local on, and turn it off. You'll still be able to hear your keyboard when you play it if echo back is enabled in your sequencer. To recap certain points on sequencing with the M1 sequencer, remember to only use aftertouch when absolutely necessary. Aftertouch can be enabled and disabled in the global section. Also, use patterns at every opportunity and put, not copy them to the track. Patterns can be recorded in real and step time, or they can be copied from a section of a track. A really good idea is to use a RAM card to offload your programs and combinations so that you can reallocate your memory, bringing it up to 7,700 notes. When I first received my M1 so that I could learn it and then go out and do clinics to show it off, I obviously had to get to know the sequencer well. I was determined to see how much of a sequence I could get out of 7,700 notes. By using all of the available tricks, such as those I have just outlined, I was able to write a sequence that I am proud of called Gen Space. It lasts for over 5 minutes and is not a sparse-sounding arrangement. I even used aftertouch in a few places. So you see, it can be done. One more thing. You're going to need a way of storing your sequences on disks. I would recommend a data filer. There are several good ones on the market at some very attractive prices. The RAM cards are a convenience, but if you're planning on doing a lot of sequencing on the M1, you're going to need a data filer. The combination mode of the M1 is very powerful. You can have up to 8 separate program sounds across the keyboard at one time in the form of splits, layers, velocity switching arrangements, and multi-timbral setups. In this section, I'll show you how to use the Edit Combination mode to create a custom combination using all of these features. First, press the Edit Combi button, and notice the first page, Combination Type. Let's show you the different types by using the value up and down buttons. First is single. This would be for a combination using a single program. Next is layer, which allows you to have two programmed sounds for every note you play, such as piano and strings, like internal 76. Next is split, for when you want to have one sound on one side of the keyboard and another sound on the other side. A good example would be 59, bass and horn. Next is velocity. Next is velocity switch, which stands for velocity switching. Check out number 37, multi-bass. This enables you to have multiple programs on the same key with keyboard velocity determining which sounds are heard. Listen as I play a bass part that the sound changes. Different key velocities in my playing are causing different bass programs to be heard. Finally, we come to multi. Multi is a selection that enables you to do any or all of the above-mentioned variations, so I would advise you to always use multi when editing combinations. To make our new custom combination, we'll start with 01 Pancala and press the Edit Combi key. Once again, before we change anything, make sure you have backed up your M1's memory to either a RAM memory card or have done a data dump to an external device. On the first page, change the word layer to multi and press the button beneath the word select to lock in the multi selection. Page up. We're going to make an entirely new combination that will give us a piano layered with strings in the right hand with a velocity switching bass in the left hand. This will show you how to do each of the combination types. For the time being, select programs 01 Piano, 07 Symphonic, 06 Fretless Bass, 46 Slap Bass. Page up. Leave the old MIDI channel set to 1G. The G appears since the M1's global MIDI channel is set to 1. Next page. This is for key window top. In other words, the top key on the keyboard that will cause this sound to be heard. We obviously want the piano and strings to go all the way up, so let's leave the key window top set to G9 for the time being. Set timbres 3 and 4, the bass timbres, to each have a top key window of C4, just below where the piano and strings will start. Next page. Key window bottom. Now we have to make the keyboard split. Let's set the key window bottom to C#4 for both the piano and strings. Now we have the basses on the left of the keyboard and piano and strings on the right. We're not done yet. Page up 3 times to the output level page. For the time being, set all levels to 99. The bass is too raw sounding. I'd prefer to have it sound like the fretless with the ability to get just a little bit of the slap bass when I strike a key with a lot of velocity. First, let's adjust the volume of the slap bass downward to get what we want. Notice as you hit the cursor position buttons under the timbres that the name of each program is shown in the top right of the display. Press the button under timbre 4, slap bass, and lower the level with the slider to 25. It's not so harsh sounding now. Also, the strings are too loud compared with the piano. Go to timbre number 2 for symphonic and set the level to 15. That's a lot better. Page back once to the velocity window bottom page and move to timbre 4. Set the bottom play velocity to 110 out of 127. This means that to hear the slap bass, you'll have to strike the key with a minimum velocity of 110. Check this out. We can actually use dynamics to dramatically change the sound. Now we're ready to make some more decisions. For instance, do we like the range of notes that we have available on the piano and strings? Do the notes go down far enough? Page up to the transpose page. I personally like the note ranges of the bass. It goes down just a little past the lowest note on a 4-string bass, low E, and goes up to a high C. It's not full range, but this is the 61-note keyboard. As for the piano, it has a good range for rhythm playing. If you preferred it to be an octave higher, you could cursor beneath the timbre and change the transposition up to a full octave either way, like this. We could also do it to the strings. Let's go back to no transposition. Next page, detune. I don't think we need to detune any of these sounds from each other. Next page is for the pan pots. Each sound can be panned to anywhere between the 4 effects processor inputs. Since my M1 is hooked up in stereo, let's adjust our combination so that the piano is on one side and the strings are on the other. Set the timbre 1 pan pot to 9-1 and the timbre 2 pan pot to 1-9. Now let's play it. That'll work. Another factor we need to consider in our split layered combination is the damper pedal. In a live performance situation, most people would prefer that the damper not affect the bass, so let's set that up also. Page up twice to the damper page. If you want the damper pedal to work for a particular timbre, the letters ENA for enable should be showing. In the case of the bass timbres 3 and 4, we'll select dis for disable. Now listen as I play a left-hand bass while sustaining the piano and strings in the right using the damper pedal. Much more flexible. Now, wouldn't it be good if we were able to have separate volume control over the strings so that we could bring them in or out by using a volume pedal? Let's do it. Page up twice to the control change page. Here is where you can enable or disable a timbre with regard to responding to control changes such as volume or pitch bend. In this case, I want only the strings on timbre 2 to respond to my Korg EXP2 foot controller pedal. Therefore, I'll disable the other active timbres. Now listen as I play using the foot controller, bringing the strings in and out while leaving the piano and basses all alone. The next thing is Aftertouch. Page back 1 to Aftertouch. Aftertouch refers to pressure applied to a keyboard after a note is struck. It can be used for many things, but it's normally used to add vibrato to a sound for phrasing purposes. We'll leave all timbres enabled. And now for some effects. A nice effect setting to use for this combination would be the one used in program 01 Piano. Keypad number 9. Page down once. Change combination to program, select 01, and copy the effects. Keypad number 9, to name and write our new combination. Since we only have 10 characters available, we'll use the abbreviation BSPNOSTR, and then we'll write to internal 01. With such a high degree of flexibility, it's amazing how straightforward it is to edit combinations on the M1. Korg's instruments are known for having the highest quality effects processors. I could use a full videotape just to explain the M1 effects section, but due to time considerations, I'll just touch on some of the basics that you should be aware of and then hit on the subjects that seem to confuse people the most. First of all, remember that keypad number 8 will always get you to the effects page in Program and Combination Edit mode or in the sequencer. Think of the effects section as a module that all your sounds have to go through to get outside. While they're in the module, they can be routed through either no effects or up to 2 effects processors before being sent to the M1's outputs. Open your manual to page 36 and 37. You'll see 2 charts which show you the M1's 2 effects placements, serial and parallel. It's these 2 routing configurations that you must understand to get the full potential out of your M1 effects section. In the chart on page 36, notice A, B, C, and D. These are the 4 inputs for the effects section. When we pan sounds in the M1, we have choices which run from input A to B, with ratios in between which start at 9-1, 8-2, 7-3, 6-4, 5-5, and so on. Moving on, you could select C, C plus D, which sends your sound equally to inputs C and D, or you could send the sound to D only. Let's say, for example, that we panned a piano between inputs A and B with a ratio of 5-5. In other words, right in the middle. Following the arrows in the chart, the piano would pass through effects processor 1, then effects processor 2, and then be sent out equally through outputs 1L and 2R. Any sound that is panned to effects inputs C and D would be sent out outputs 3 and 4 with no effect added. Here's where it gets interesting. Let's say that you panned a sound to C plus D, which would put it in the middle of C and D. Notice the pan 3 and pan 4 in the chart. C has its own pan pot, and so does D. These pan pots can route a signal back to the A and B side of the effect unit so that the signal could pass through effect 2 only and then be sent out of the outputs 1L and 2R. In this case, you would still have the unaffected signal coming out of outputs 3 and 4 and also have it coming out of 1 and 2 with effect 2 on it as well. Take a deep breath and let's go one step further. Select Program 09 Drums 1 and go into Edit Program. Push keypad 8 and page up 4 times to the effect placement page. Here's where you change from serial to parallel. Press button A and the value down button for parallel. Now back to serial. To the right are the pan pots 3 and 4 coming from inputs C and D. They're off, which means that anything panned to them would only be heard if they had outputs 3 and 4 plugged into a mixer. Since I don't, I want to route them back to the A and B side of the effects processor, so I'll set pan pot 3 to L by moving the slider up all the way to the top. I'll set pan pot 4 to R by pushing the value up button once. Now that I've set my pan pot for hard left and right, any sound assigned only to C will be panned back to a hard left, pick up effect 2, and then go out of output 1L. The converse is true of a sound that would be panned to input D. It would be sent to hard right into effect 2 and be sent out of output 2R. Now here's where you might start to hyperventilate. Keypad number 8 and select the 01 Hall reverb for effect number 1 and push the button below Select. Hit the snare drum. Too much reverb. Page up once and set the dry effect balance to 80-20. Much better. Page up once more to effect 2 and select the 23 exciter effect. Going back to our chart, any sound that is sent to between inputs A and B will go through effect 1, a Hall reverb, and then effect 2, an exciter, and then go out through outputs 1L and 2R. Any sound that is panned to effects inputs C and or D would be panned back into the A and B section, missing effect 1, but going through effect 2, and then being sent out through outputs 1L and 2R. Now I'm going to give you an exercise to apply this. I want to show you how you can have some drums with reverb and some without. First, assuming that you've backed up your factory programs onto a RAM card or into a data filer, go to keypad 9 and write this program with its new effect settings. Keypad 0 and page up once. The display tells me that drum kit 1 is being used in this program. To access drum kit 1, press the global button and press keypad 4. Here we are at drum kit 1. The first sound showing is on key C1 and is the drum sound, kick 1. Remember, effect 1 is a hall reverb and effect 2 is the exciter. Referring back to the chart, if I want to reverb on my kick drum, I would pan it to somewhere between A and B. If I wanted it dry, I would pan it to C plus D, where it would be routed back to pick up only effect 2, the exciter. Let's repan the kick to C plus D. The reverb is gone. Play the snare. The snare still has reverb. The dry kick is now too loud, so I'll turn its level down to -50. While we're at it, let's pan the hi-hat 2 samples on keys A2 and B2 to C. So that they will also be dry, and pan back to the exciter and come out of output 1L. I'll set their levels to -60. In this scenario, any sound that you want to have reverb would be panned to between A and B, and any sound that you want not to have reverb would be panned to between C and D. Any sound panned to D would be panned back to the A and B side and come out of output 2R. Now, using this, let's go back to our sequencer and song 00 and set up our effect. Since we've written our new effect setup into program 09, we can keypad number 9, page down once, select program 09, press the button under copy and say yes. Press global, keypad number 5, turn the clock back to internal. Now go to the sequencer, select song 0 and play it. The sound is harsh, and I know from experience that the harshness is coming from the exciter, which is set too high. Keypad number 8. Page up 3 times to the exciter parameters and change the blend to +50 and the emphatic point to 02. Now play it. Much better. It really opened up the sounds, didn't it? Another thing, go back to keypad 8 and the exciter and add a little low EQ for some more punch from the kick drum and bass. Also, since I had played in too many rock bands, I think I'll add a little high EQ. You might want to experiment by changing the emphatic point of the exciter to hear how the character of the sound is changed. I generally run mine on either 01 or 02. Notice that the kick and hi-hat are dry in the sequence since its effect setup is the same as the drum kits now. Now we could go to keypad number 4 in the sequencer to track parameters and repan the bass to C plus D so that it would be dry just like the kick drum. Now play it. A lot tighter sounding, but too loud. Keypad number 4, and bring track 3's volume down to 75. That really cleaned up the bass, didn't it? I think that a serial effects placement with a reverb on effect 1 and an exciter on effect 2 with pan pots 3 and 4 panned to left and right is the best all-around generic effects setup for sequencing. But wait, there's more. It's called parallel effects routing. Turn to the top of page 37 for the parallel routing chart. Notice the difference. Sounds coming into inputs A and B will get only effect 1 processor and go out of outputs 1L and 2R. Sounds panned to C and or D will pick up only effect 2 with the ability to pan them back to the A and B side and go out of the left and right outputs. Or they could be sent out of outputs 3 and 4. We have a whole new set of possibilities here. Back to program 09. Press Edit Program, keypad to 8, and page up twice to the selection for Effect 2 and select Effect 28, Delay Early Reflection. Effect 2 is now set up to produce 2 effects. Looking back at our chart, I want you to know that when you have 2 effects from one of your processors, the first effect is assigned to the left input, in this case C, and the second effect is assigned to the right input, in this case D. The delay is assigned to C, and the early reflection is assigned to D. We'll leave Effect 1 setting to the hall reverb. Now we're set up to do something special. I want to make the drum kit have 3 different effects possibilities for each drum. I'd like the kick drum and hi-hats to be dry, that is to have no reverb. I'd like the snare drum to have the early reflection reverb, which is sometimes known as a gated reverb. And I'd like all other drum sounds to have a hall reverb, and I'd like all of these sounds with their different effects to come out of only 2 outputs, 1L and 2R. Let's go back to the effect placement page and select parallel. I want the pan pots to be reset so that they can come back to the center of the mix. So I'll set each of them to 50-50. Now page back to Effect 2 parameters. Remember, we need a dry effect for the kick and hi-hat. All we have is a hall reverb on Effect 1 and a delay and early reflection from Effect 2. I think I'll set the delay coming from C so that it's totally dry, so that any sound panned to it will not have any delay. Perfect for my kick and hi-hat. And remember that we pan pot 3 to the center of the mix. That's where you want the kick to be. And the second effect in the number 2 processor is the early reflection, which will be coming from D and going back to the center of the mix and out through the left and right outputs. Now let's go back to global keypad number 4 to reset our drums. First, repan the kick and hi-hats to input C for the dry effect. Now go to the snare on F1 and pan it to D. Now listen as I play the various drums to show you what we've done. Dry kick, early reflection reverb on the snare, dry hi-hat, and a hall reverb on everything else. If you use this effect setup in a sequence, you would pan your bass guitar to input C, and anything that you wanted to go through the early reflection would be panned to D. Remember previously in the global section we set pedal input 1 to Effect 1 control? Go to internal program 67. Organ number 1. Hold down a chord and press your pedal that is plugged into input 1. If you set your global pedal assignments according to my instructions in the global section, your rotary speaker effect should move to the fast speed and then back to the slow speed when you let up on your foot. By the way, if you're using a foot pedal other than one with Korg's polarity setting, it will work opposite from the way you want it to work. Make sure your pedal has the right polarity. Now to find out how this foot pedal causes the rotary speaker to work, go into Edit Program and keypad to 8. We see that Effect 1 is the rotary speaker. The explanation is this. Effect 1 has been assigned the rotary speaker effect. In global mode, pedal input 1 was assigned to Effect 1 control. Therefore, the pedal plugged into input number 1 is controlling the rotary speaker speed. Have fun. Sometimes you want to assign a sound to its own output so that you can run it into an external mixer and process it with another effects processor. In this case, set your effects placement to serial and turn pan pots 3 and 4 to off. Any sound panned to C will go out of output 3 totally dry. Any sound panned to D will go out totally dry also. Route your other sounds to A and B to make use of internal effects, and then come out of outputs 1L and 2R. I obviously don't have enough time to go over every parameter of every effect, but I did want to highlight the fact that this is a full-featured effects section. Let me recommend that you take some time to experiment with your effects. They give a special quality to all of your music. Well, that's about it. I hope this video has been a help to you. I also want to acquaint you with an opportunity that I think might excite you. Korg has made available an M1 EX PCM ROM expansion kit. When you're ready, this kit can be installed into your M1 at a Korg authorized service department. The kit will give you twice as many sounds as you have now. Another more classical sounding piano, 41 more percussion sounds, more basses, more and better strings, synths, and a lot more. Installed cost for this upgrade is $400. With this kit installed, you would have all of the additional sounds found in the very popular Korg T-Series instruments. It's a great thing to have done to your M1. When you're ready, call your nearest Korg Service Center or Korg USA Incorporated at 516-333-9100 to find out where to go. One more thing, don't let this video keep you from reading your owner's manual. With the basic understanding I hope you've gained from watching this tape, the manual should be a lot easier to understand. Also, don't forget Korg USA's excellent product support department. There are several well-trained experts waiting to assist you with your Korg products. Dial 1-516-333-USER and get direct access to Korg's Product Support Center. Thanks for watching.